Hello, and welcome back to 7 Days Inside Borderline. I'm Kyle Lincoln, a counselor in private practice based in Salem, Massachusetts, and your host for the series. This podcast is all about exploring borderline personality disorder, or BPD, to bring understanding, tools, and hope to those navigating it.
Hi everyone, I'm Kellen and I work behind the scenes at the practice. I'm here to keep things focused and ask the kinds of questions that make these conversations practical and relatable.
Thanks, Kellen. So, as a background for this episode, we should note that for a long time, BPD was misunderstood, even thought to be untreatable, but today, research has given us effective therapies specifically designed for BPD.
And that's what we're going to be exploring today, the treatments.
Exactly. Today, we'll take a closer look at 4 evidence-based approaches: Transference-Focused Psychotherapy, or TFP, Mentalization-Based Therapy, or MBT, Schema Therapy, and Dialectical Behavior Therapy, or DBT. Each of these therapies offers unique tools for managing emotions, understanding relationships, and creating a life that feels more stable and fulfilling.
So that's kind of a lot, especially for the average listener. So where do we start with this, Kyle?
Okay, so you're right. It's a lot to cover, and we're going to be getting into some specifics and some nitty-gritty. But before we jump into the specifics, I want to set the stage by talking about the framework that makes therapy effective and any therapy more effective. Understanding this foundation helps you see how these therapies work and how they might fit into your journey. Before we get into the specifics of each of these 4 therapies, let's talk about something more foundational: the commitment to treatment itself. Picture moving cross-country in a U-Haul. The boxes, furniture, everything you've collected over the years. There's a big journey ahead.
Yeah. Maybe explain that a bit more to me.
Okay, so it's a metaphor. On one coast before treatment, you might feel stuck, repeating the same problems, avoiding change, or waiting for things to magically get better. And on the other coast, it represents what you're working towards in treatment. There's a life where you understand yourself better, where old wounds have started to heal, and where your relationships and sense of self feel more stable and fulfilling.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And I actually really like that image. And I think a lot of people can relate to it, wanting to find that other coast. But it sounds like the journey between those coasts is not exactly easy.
It's not. And just like an actual cross-country move, the process takes effort, planning, and commitment. And along the way, there are plenty of opportunities for detours. In working with clients, there are times I've seen people half-doing therapy, skipping sessions, testing boundaries, or renegotiating the terms of treatment that they actually helped to create with me when things get uncomfortable. These behaviors might feel relieving in the moment, but they stall progress and keep you from reaching the destination you're working towards.
So the key here is like staying on course, even when it feels challenging?
Yes, and staying motivated. It's an art, it's not a science, but therapy is more than just showing up to talk. It's about committing to the journey itself and working collaboratively with your counselor to build a plan that works for you. You're not a passenger in this trip, you are the driver.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, so you're the one investing in your future. And the agreements you make at the start of therapy, like showing up consistency and working towards your goals, are decisions on a map that help you stay on track.
So what happens if someone takes one of those detours?
It's not uncommon. And in fact, I've never been in a counseling session or in a counseling relationship where someone doesn't take a detour. Sometimes the work feels too hard. Sometimes change feels too slow. But when that happens, it's important to talk about it with your therapist. Those moments create opportunities to refocus and learn more about what's getting in the way. What matters is not giving up on the journey. The structure you and your therapist or your team create together is there to support you and keep you moving forward.
And I imagine the agreement can change, say from 2 sessions a week to 1.
Right, just not over text 15 minutes into a missed session.
Right.
Okay, so we're talking about 4 treatments, but here's the truth. Just like a journey cross-country, there are multiple highways that you can take. And most people can benefit from any of these 4 therapies. They're a lot like the highways you can take to get to your destination, as long as you stay committed to the process. The work is what gets you to the other coast. It's not just the specific road you take. Therapy is a process where you reflect on your past and understand your present and take responsibility for your future. That supersedes any of these 4 approaches. That commitment is what transforms the journey from just getting by to truly growing.
Oh, okay. So therapy is really about choosing to move forward, even when it's difficult.
That's exactly it. And when you commit to the process, you're choosing to make the journey worth it. Okay, now we've set the stage. Let's dive into the first approach, Transference-Focused Psychotherapy, or TFP. Transference-Focused Psychotherapy, TFP, is grounded in object relations theory, which explores how early relationships shape our emotional experiences and our patterns of interacting with others throughout our entire lives.
So it's about understanding the roots of our emotions and behaviors?
Exactly. And for people with BPD, intense, sometimes undefined emotions, what according to TFP, are called primitive affects, often drive behavior. These might include rage or helplessness or a deep fear of annihilation. People develop defense mechanisms like splitting, where they see others as all good or all bad. These are patterns that might have been protective in the past, such as during childhood, but now for adults, they can create real instability.
So TFP brings those behavioral patterns to light?
That's the goal. In therapy, the relationship with your therapist serves as a kind of mirror for these patterns. If you feel, say, your therapist doesn't care about you after a canceled session, they might ask, could this feeling be connected to a fear of rejection? And by exploring those feelings in the here and now, you can start to understand and shift these patterns.
Okay. How does that process work in a session?
Right. So using the example I just used, the therapist uses real-time interactions as a window into your emotional world. So if you feel upset with your therapist, they might gently ask, what's making you feel this way? Connect the dots for me. What just happened?
So the therapist helps you connect the dots between your feelings, behaviors, and patterns?
Exactly. In real time. TFP uses techniques like clarification, asking questions to help you better understand your emotions, and confrontation, which gently challenges distortions in thinking. Over time, these insights help you develop healthier ways of relating to others and managing your emotions.
That makes a lot of sense, but it also sounds like it could be really, really intense.
It is intense, just like any relationship can be intense. The goal is to help you understand yourself better and learn to navigate relationships in a more balanced way, starting with developing a healthy relationship with your counselor. TFP focuses on building awareness, which creates the foundation for change.
Awesome. Okay, so where do we go next?
Next, let's move to mentalization-based therapy, or MBT. So while TFP focuses on the emotional patterns that shape relationships, MBT takes a different angle by helping you better understand and interpret your own thoughts and feelings, as well as the thoughts and feelings of others. This is a cognitive approach that can be a real game changer for creating clarity and connection in your inner and outer worlds. Now let's talk about mentalization-based therapy, or MBT. This approach has its roots in attachment theory and focuses on something called mentalizing. Simply put, mentalizing is the ability to understand your own thoughts, feelings, and motivations, as well as the thoughts, feelings, and motivations of others.
But don't most people do that already? I feel like that's something I was taught to do growing up. Why does mentalizing pose a challenge for someone with BPD?
The theory behind MBT is that difficulties with mentalizing often stem from early attachment experiences. So if a caregiver was inconsistent, neglectful, or emotionally unavailable, it could lead to a fearful or insecure attachment style. And over time, this can disrupt the ability to make sense of one's own mental states or those of others, and it leaves the world feeling unpredictable or even hostile.
Wow, that's kind of scary. So if you can't understand what's going on in your own mind or in somebody else's, I imagine I'd feel pretty overwhelmed and pretty unsafe.
Yeah, without a strong internal organizing function, emotions can feel chaotic and relationships can become sources of confusion or conflict. For example, someone might misinterpret a friend's delayed response to a message as rejection, which could trigger intense feelings of hurt or anger. Now, MBT aims to rebuild that internal function, helping people to better understand their own thoughts and emotions, as well as the intentions and behaviors of others.
So let's see if I'm getting this right. It sounds like MBT encourages curiosity instead of jumping to conclusions.
Right. So by slowing down and examining assumptions, you can start to see alternative explanations. For instance, maybe your friend wasn't avoiding you, but was just dealing with their own stress. This process helps reduce emotional intensity and promotes healthier, more balanced relationships.
Okay, I think I get that. So what's next?
Okay, so schema therapy. It shifts the focus from understanding mental states, like in MBT, to uncovering deeply rooted beliefs or schemas that shape how we interpret and respond to the world. These schemas, often shaped by early experiences, can create recurring patterns of pain and difficulty. So let's explore how schema therapy works. Schema therapy helps uncover and transform deeply rooted schemas, or mental frameworks, that guide how we view ourselves, others, and the world. For someone with BPD, these schemas are often distorted by inconsistent or painful early experience.
So schemas are like mental maps that guide how we navigate life?
I think that's a really good image, yeah. So for someone with BPD, these maps might be skewed by earlier experiences, and they lead to beliefs like, I'm bad, I'm inherently bad, or people will always leave me. These beliefs influence how situations are interpreted, and they can fuel emotional pain and reinforce the schema in a cycle that feels hard to break.
So for someone with BPD, the mental framework in their head brings them to the extreme, which is usually not connected to reality.
Right. So take the schema of abandonment, for example. Now, if a friend cancels plans, not abandonment, it might feel like proof that people will always leave you. This can trigger intense emotions like panic, anger, sadness, and lead to actions like lashing out or withdrawing completely.
So how does schema therapy then work to change that?
So it focuses on identifying the schemas, and then it focuses on addressing the emotional states or schema modes that these schemas activate. So for someone with BPD, modes like the vulnerable child, the angry child, or the punitive parent may take over, driving extreme emotional responses. The goal is to get out of child mode into parent mode and to strengthen a healthy response rather than a punitive one. So the healthy adult mode is balanced, compassionate, capable of navigating situations constructively. Really, the focus is on getting there.
The healthy adult mode. Okay. But how do sessions help someone shift into that healthy adult mode?
Yeah, good question. So in therapy, the therapist works with you to examine triggering situations, like we mentioned, canceled plans. They help you uncover the schema at play, such as, this proves I'm unlovable, and trace it back to early experiences. Together, you challenge that belief and explore healthier, more realistic perspectives. Your counselor might engage in role-playing exercises to do this, and ultimately, you might physically write out the old and the new schema.
So then in MBT, it's almost like your mental framework is under construction. Then in schema therapy, it's almost like your mental framework is under construction. And with your counselor working beside you, you learn to build healthier and safer paths, replacing those outdated beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. So over time, you replace distorted schemas with healthier, more accurate beliefs. For example, instead of people will always leave me, the new belief might be, some relationships may end, but I'm capable of forming meaningful connections. Key here is that schema therapy doesn't just change behaviors, it reshapes the core patterns that drive them.
I like that. I believe we have one more left, right?
Right. Dialectical Behavior Therapy coming up. Finally, let's explore Dialectical Behavior Therapy, or DBT. It's one of the most widely recognized treatments for BPD and focuses on managing intense emotions and the behaviors that can arise from them. While schema therapy focuses on long-term transformation of beliefs, DBT is really practical and focuses on day-to-day tools for managing intense emotions, building healthier behaviors. It's especially effective for addressing immediate challenges and creating stability.
DBT seems to come up a lot in our conversation about borderline personality disorder. So what makes it so essential, and what makes them so related to each other?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Marsha Linehan, who is the founder of DBT, she actually came out in the media saying that she was treated for borderline personality disorder as an adolescent. And these are tools that she used in order to actually get better herself. So when she went to grad school, part of her research was in bringing together these tools around a treatment that she would later validate as dialectical behavior therapy. So BPD is the condition. DBT is one of the foremost treatments for that condition. DBT, it addresses a key challenge for many people with BPD, extreme mood states that feel overwhelming. Oftentimes people haven't had the chance to learn coping strategies for these emotions because they grew up in environments that were invalidating of their feelings. And this can lead to behaviors like self-harm or impulsivity, ways to get quick relief that often make things worse in the long term.
And DBT helps break that cycle?
Yeah, one of the things that I love about DBT is the way that it balances validation and change. So therapists acknowledge and validate your feelings. They're real and they matter, right? That's that validating environment, not an invalidating environment, but they also push for growth and help you build healthier responses. That balance between acceptance and change is the core of DBT.
Right. So how does that balance come through in practice?
Really, it's a focus on practical skills. DBT has 4 main areas: mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. Now, instead of really diving into all 4, let's just look at 2. So mindfulness, it teaches you to pause and observe your feelings without judgment and choose how to respond, right? There's an acceptance piece to that. You're just seeing it. But choosing to respond is an opportunity for change. Distress tolerance, it provides techniques like grounding to help you get through tough moments without making them worse. So neither of these guarantee that the circumstances triggering the emotion will change, and that's where acceptance is key, but the change is in the new behavioral responses that it encourages you to think through.
Those skills sound kind of familiar, kind of like steps to creating the solid, flexible self that we discussed in episode 2.
Yeah, and especially the coping skills list that we came up with in episode 4. A mentor of mine once said, "You make your choices, and your choices make you." And in this sense, our behaviors do matter, and they can make imperfect situations better. Practically in sessions, I want to look out for instances of life-interfering behaviors or therapy interfering behaviors, so that we can notice if a person is on their way to developing that solid, flexible self, if they're engaging in coping or self-sabotaging behaviors. For example, if you're in treatment and your counselor is using DBT, you might use a diary card to track behaviors like moments of self-harm or conflict and work to analyze the patterns and develop healthier responses.
So then DBT gives you tools for both understanding and changing your behaviors.
Exactly. It's a structured, supportive approach that helps you move from surviving to thriving, just one small step at a time.
Whew, okay, that was kind of a lot of information. All good though, love it. Can we slow down for just a second to maybe make sure we've got this all?
Okay, absolutely. So we covered 4 therapies: TFP, Transference-Focused Psychotherapy; MBT, Mentalization-Based Therapy; Schema Therapy; and DBT, Dialectical Behavior Therapy. Each one offers a unique approach, but they're all working towards the same goal, helping you move from feeling stuck and overwhelmed to building a life that feels stable, meaningful, and fulfilling.
So if we think back to the cross-country move metaphor, these therapies are like the different routes you could take. The roads might vary, but the destination stays the same, right?
Exactly. And it's not about finding the perfect therapy. It's just about committing to the journey. Detours and challenges are part of the process, but as long as you keep going, you will make progress. The important thing is showing up, sticking with the plan, and staying engaged with your work.
And that work isn't just about managing symptoms. It's about real growth. It's about changing how you see yourself, relate to others, and navigate the world.
Yeah, that's right. When you stay committed to treatment, you're investing in your future. You're creating the conditions for healing, both in how you feel day to day and in the deeper ways that allow you to move past old patterns and step into a more balanced and fulfilling life. So, whether someone is just starting therapy or thinking about making a change, the first step is like packing that first box for the move. It's small, but it gets the whole process started. And once you started, the key is staying with it, even when the road gets rough. Remember, progress isn't about being perfect. It's about making small, meaningful steps forward. And that's something anyone can do with the right commitment and support.
Just talking about treatment and really everything today has made me feel a lot of hope. So thanks, Kyle, for breaking all that down. And thank you to our listeners. I think, just by being here for some, this might be the first step to their journey.
In our next episode, we'll explore how to support a loved one navigating BPD, a crucial part of fostering understanding and connection. Until then, keep moving forward, stay committed to the journey, and take care of yourselves.